My sister borrowed my laptop for 1 hour and returned it 3 weeks later, wiped clean. Oops, I did a factory reset by accident. All my client files gone. I'd lost 6 months of work. Relax, it's just a computer, Mom said. So I smiled and hired a data recovery specialist and a lawyer. When the lawsuit for lost business revenue was served. My name is Adam. I'm 31, the one who's usually in charge, and I design buildings for a living. Not the glamorous part. The part where you live in CAD files and red lines, where one wrong layer can turn a clean plan into a client screaming at you on a call. I'm an architect and project engineer in Seattle. I work hybrid for a firm, but a lot of my real money comes from side clients. Small developers, remodels. One guy who flips triplexes and thinks ASAP is a personality trait. My laptop is basically my office. It's where all my active project folders live. It's where my custom CAD templates live. It's where I keep 6 months of emails and RFIs and, hey, can you just tweak this one thing requests? And yes, I know. Use backups. I do. Just not the way I should have. My sister Kelsey has never had a real sense of consequences. She's 26. She's always between jobs. Always figuring it out. Always one bill away from a crisis that somehow becomes everyone else's job to solve. My mom calls her free-spirited. My dad calls her sensitive. I call her the reason I lock my car. That night, I was standing in my mom's kitchen in West Seattle, holding my laptop like it was a sick pet. Kelsey breezed in like she was returning a library book. Here, she said, pushing it toward me with one hand. Sorry, it took longer than I thought. I stared at her. 3 weeks, Kels. You said 1 hour. She rolled her eyes like I'd asked her to do math. I needed it. My Chromebook was being weird. I flipped the lid open. My heart did this gross little drop. The wallpaper was some default mountain thing. No pinned apps. No project folder shortcuts. No Adam_work, folders sitting there like it always did. Just clean. I clicked on the file explorer. Empty. I looked at her slowly. Why does it look like a brand new computer? Kelsey's face did that fake innocent thing she learned from my mom. Oops. I didn't blink. What do you mean, oops? She shrugged. I did a factory reset by accident. It asked me questions, and I just clicked through. I didn't think it would, like, delete everything. I swear I heard blood in my ears. Everything on here, I said, voice flat, was my work. Kelsey made a face like I was being dramatic. Relax. It's just a computer. I turned to my mom because part of me still had this stupid hope she'd finally react like a normal adult. Mom didn't even look up from the dish towel. She sighed like I was the problem. Adam, don't start. She said it was an accident. I stared at my wiped laptop. Then I stared at my sister, who was already scrolling her phone. Then my mom added, calm as anything. You're always so intense about your little drawings. My little drawings. 6 months of client files. Deadlines. Invoices. Permits. All living on that, just a computer. I felt my mouth pull into something that looked like a smile. Not because it was funny. Because I realized something. They weren't going to help. They weren't going to be sorry. They were going to minimize this until I shut up and swallowed it like I always did. So I nodded. I said, okay. And I picked up my laptop like it was made of glass. Kelsey smirked. Like she'd won. Mom went back to folding towels. I walked out, got in my car, and sat there in the dark with my hands on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. A client email popped up. Hey Adam, any update on the revised set? We need to submit by Friday. Friday. I looked down at my dead clean laptop. And in that moment, I didn't feel sad. I felt cold. Because if my own family could shrug off wiping out my livelihood, then they were not family in the way they wanted to be treated. They were just people who thought they could take from me without paying. And I was done being their free resource. Kelsey has been borrowing my stuff since we were kids. Not in a normal sibling way. In a take it, break it, shrug, and somehow I'm the bad guy for being upset way. When we were teenagers, she used my bike, left it unlocked, and it got stolen. Mom said, it's just a bike. Don't be materialistic. When I bought my first real set of tools after college, Kelsey borrowed my drill for a weekend and returned it with a weird smell and a cracked casing. Dad said, well, you know how she is. When she ran up her credit card in her early 20s and couldn't pay rent, guess who got the call? Me. Adam, Mom said, like she was asking for a small favor. Your sister's in a tough spot. You have savings. I did have savings. Because I'm the guy who budgets. The guy who doesn't buy random stuff. The guy who thinks ahead. So I paid. Not forever. Just to stabilize her. That's the story I told myself every time. Stabilize her. She'll get on her feet. She just needs a little help. But a little help turned into a pattern. And the pattern turned into an expectation. Kelsey would call. Or Mom would call on her behalf. It always came with soft language and guilt. You're the oldest. You're so good with money. She's struggling. She's your sister. Meanwhile, Kelsey never changed. She just got better at acting helpless. The worst part is, I wasn't even doing amazing. I was doing okay. Seattle is expensive. My rent isn't cute. My student loans weren't cute either. I was hustling side work because my firm's salary was solid, but not buy a house in Seattle solid. Side work is how I got ahead. That's what made the laptop thing so insane. My laptop wasn't a luxury. It was my tool, my income, my safety net. I was careful with it. I didn't even let coworkers touch it unless I was right there. But the week Kelsey asked, I was distracted. I was slammed. 3 projects were stacked on top of each other like a bad Jenga tower. A small commercial tenant improvement. Client wanted revisions every 2 days. A residential remodel where the homeowner kept changing their mind about everything. A permit set for a duplex conversion that had to be submitted by the end of the month or the developer lost financing. I was working late, living off coffee, and my brain was basically just a spinning wheel. Kelsey showed up at my apartment unannounced. She did that thing where she acts like we're close when she needs something. Hey, she said, stepping over my shoes in the entryway. Quick question. I didn't even turn around from my desk. No. She laughed like it was a joke. Okay, but actually, can I borrow your laptop for like an hour? I finally looked at her. Why? My Chromebook is lagging and I have this online assessment thing. It's important. I narrowed my eyes. For what job? She waved her hand. A good one. Like, real. Remote. Benefits. I didn't believe her, but I was tired. An hour, I said. You sit at my table. You don't install anything. You don't touch my folders. You don't sign into weird accounts. And you do not reset anything. Kelsey put her hand to her chest like I'd insulted her. Oh my God, Adam. I'm not in fool. Reader. She is, in fact, in fool. She took the laptop and immediately started clicking like she was speedrunning a virus. I hovered. She got annoyed. Stop watching me, she snapped. It's creepy. I said, it's my work machine. She sighed dramatically. You're so controlling. Then Mom called my phone. Adam, can you come by tonight? Mom asked. Your dad's grilling. Kelsey's here too. Family dinner. I almost laughed. Kelsey was already in my apartment. She'd clearly planned this. I said no. Mom did the guilt voice. You're always busy. We never see you. I looked at my laptop. I looked at the drawings on my screen. I looked at the stack of deadlines. I caved. Not fully. Just a little. Kelsey, I said, I'm leaving for 2 hours. You finish the assessment and you leave the laptop on the table. I'll be back. She smiled. Thanks. You're the best. I should have taken it with me, but I didn't. 2 hours became 4 because my parents dragged dinner out and my dad wanted to talk about some neighbor's fence dispute like it was world news. When I finally got home, the laptop was gone. My stomach sank. I called Kelsey. No answer. I texted, where's my laptop? 5 minutes later, still doing stuff. Chill. That was the start of the 3-week nightmare. Every day I asked. Every day, I got a new excuse. I'm in the middle of something. I'm at a friend's. I forgot it at Mom's. I can bring it tomorrow. My car won't start. I'm literally so stressed. Stop yelling at me. Meanwhile, I was scrambling. I tried working on my old desktop tower, which sounded like a jet engine and crashed if I opened too many files. I pulled older versions from email attachments and tried to rebuild sets like a caveman. I lost time. Real time. And time is money when clients are paying you for deliverables. One client got annoyed. Why are you so slow all of a sudden? Another said, we might have to find someone else if you can't keep up. I started waking up with that tight chest feeling, like I was constantly behind a moving train. After week 2, I drove to my mom's house. Kelsey was on the couch eating chips like she lived there. I asked, where's my laptop? She said, mouth full, in my room. I held my hand out. Go get it. Mom immediately stepped in, defensive. Adam, don't bark at her like she's a dog. I stared at Mom. She took my work computer for 3 weeks. Kelsey rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. Dad mumbled from his recliner. Just let her finish what she's doing. What she's doing. I repeated. What is she doing? Kelsey smirked. Stuff. Bring it out, I said. She didn't. Mom told me to stop causing a scene. That night, I left without the laptop. Because I didn't want to scream in my mom's living room like some reality show. I thought, okay, I'll handle it like an adult. I should have handled it like a bank handles fraud. Because adults who don't respect boundaries don't suddenly learn them because you asked nicely. And when Kelsey finally returned it, she didn't return it with apology. She returned it with a shrug and a factory reset. The next morning, I didn't call Kelsey. I didn't text Mom. I didn't rant in the family group chat. I did something else. I opened my notes app and started listing out, in plain language, what had just happened. Laptop taken without consent after agreed 1 hour. Laptop held for 3 weeks despite repeated requests. Laptop returned wiped clean. Active client files lost. Deadlines missed. Income at risk. Seeing it written out made it feel real. Not family drama. Not oopsie. Damage. Then I called my friend Marcus, who works in IT. He answered with, "What's up, man?" I said, "My sister factory reset my laptop." He paused. "Why was your sister touching your laptop?" "Long story." "Okay," he said slowly. "Is the drive encrypted?" "Yes." "Do you have backups?" "Some. Not enough." He exhaled. A factory reset on modern systems can mean it overwrote blocks. But don't use it. Don't install anything. Don't even boot it more than you have to. I already booted it, I admitted. "Stop," he said. "Bring it to a recovery place. Like, a real one. Not Geek Squad. A real lab." I wrote that down. Then I did what my mom hates most. I made it official. I called a data recovery specialist in Seattle that had actual reviews and a real lab. The woman on the phone spoke like someone who has heard every kind of panic. "Do not use the device," she said. "Bring it in. We'll do an evaluation." I drove there on my lunch break with the laptop in my passenger seat like it was a bomb. The tech looked at me and said, "Factory reset, huh?" I nodded. He didn't judge me. He just said, "We'll see what we can do." But if this was a reset with secure wipe, recovery could be limited. Limited. That word hurt. On the way out, he handed me an intake sheet and an estimated range. My stomach flipped. It wasn't cheap, but losing 6 months of work was worse. That night, my mom called. Her tone was sugary, like nothing happened. "Hi, honey. Are you still mad?" I said, "Mad isn't the word." She sighed. "Adam, she didn't mean to. You know Kelsey." I said, "Yes, I know Kelsey. That's why I'm handling this." Mom's voice sharpened. "Handling it how?" I kept my voice calm. "I took the laptop to a data recovery lab." Silence. Then, "Why would you waste money on that?" I laughed once. Not happy, just disbelief. "Because my files are gone, Mom." "It's still just a computer," she snapped. "You can redo it." "You're smart." I said. "Redo 6 months of revisions? Rebuild client models? Recreate permit sets?" Mom did the classic move. Minimize, then guilt. "Your sister is devastated," she said. "She's been crying." I almost said something cruel. Instead, I said, "Good." Mom gasped. "Adam," I cut in. "Stop." She took my livelihood. She ignored me for weeks. Then she wiped it. "I'm done treating this like a quirky family mistake." Mom's voice went icy. "So what? You're going to punish her?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at my kitchen table, my invoices, my calendar, a sticky note that said "Submit Friday," like a threat. Then I said, "I'm going to be made whole." That's when Mom started yelling. "You're being vindictive. You always think you're better than her. She's your sister, not some stranger. You can't put money over family." I waited until she paused to breathe. Then I said, "Family didn't save my files." And I hung up. The next day, I called a lawyer. Not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted a boundary that couldn't be talked over. The lawyer asked questions in a calm, boring voice. "Do you have documentation of the laptop being borrowed? Do you have texts? Do you have proof of lost revenue?" I had texts. A ton. "Kelsey, I need my laptop back today. Stop being dramatic. I'll bring it tomorrow. Chill." And I had proof of what was on that machine. Client contracts, invoices, deadlines in writing, email threads where clients got increasingly irritated. I also had one more thing. I had my mom's message in the group chat from week 2 when I complained. She wrote, "Stop harassing your sister. She'll return it when she can." Harassing. Asking for my own laptop back was harassing. The lawyer said, "We can send a demand letter first. Recoverable damages depend on what we can prove." data recovery costs, business interruption, breach of contract penalties, maybe more. I swallowed. And if they refuse? He said, then you file. That same night, I showed up at my parents' house. Not to yell, to say it once, clearly, to their faces. Qley was at the kitchen counter, eating cereal out of a mug like she owned the place. I set a folder on the table. Dad looked up. What's that? I said, a timeline, evidence, and a demand letter. Mom's face went red instantly. Are you kidding me? Qley blinked. Wait, like for real? I looked at my sister. You wiped my laptop. She laughed nervously. It was an accident. I said, accidents still cost money. Mom snapped. You're not seriously going to sue your own sister? I nodded. Yes. Dad finally spoke, annoyed. Adam, you're being ridiculous. I opened the folder and slid out one page. This is the estimate for data recovery, I said. This is what I've already paid as a deposit. Qley's eyes widened. That's insane, I said. So is losing 6 months of client work. Mom leaned forward, angry. You're doing this to hurt her. No, I said, voice steady. I'm doing this because you taught her she can hurt me and you'll still defend her. Qley scoffed. Oh my God, you're so dramatic. Then I said the one sentence that made the room go quiet. I'm not asking. I'm informing you. I put the demand letter on the table. Mom grabbed it like it burned her fingers. She skimmed, then looked up with pure rage. You can't do this. I said, watch me. And I walked out. 2 days later, my lawyer filed. A week after that, the papers were served. And that's when my phone started exploding. The day the lawsuit got served, I was at my desk at work trying to pretend I was a normal employee and not a guy quietly falling apart. My phone lit up. Mom. Dad. Qley. Mom again. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then a text popped up from my sister. What is wrong with you? I stared at it for a full 10 seconds. Then another message. They served me at my job. In front of everyone. I pictured it instantly. Qley's new real job, temporary admin gig, no benefits, because of course. A process server walking in. Her coworkers watching. Her face going pale. And I felt nothing. Not joy. Not guilt. Just a quiet, flat sense of consequences finally showed up. Mom called again. I answered this time. She didn't even say hello. How could you humiliate her like that? I said, I didn't. She did. Mom started crying on command. Like she was auditioning. She's so embarrassed, Adam. She's having a panic attack. I said, I'm having a financial one. Mom snapped back. Your sister doesn't have money. I kept my voice calm. Then she shouldn't destroy things that cost money. Dad got on the line, voice low and threatening. You're tearing this family apart. I laughed, short and bitter. No, you just don't like that I'm not absorbing the damage anymore. Then Qley grabbed the phone. Adam, you're ruining my life. I said, you ruined my work. She yelled, it was a mistake. I said, keeping my laptop for 3 weeks wasn't a mistake. Resetting it without asking wasn't a mistake. You just assumed it would be fine because Mom would protect you. Qley's voice went sharp. You're doing this because you hate me. I paused. Then I said, honestly, I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. And I'm done paying for your choices. She started sobbing. Mom started yelling in the background. Dad said, we'll talk about this like adults. I said, we are. My lawyer will talk to yours. And I hung up. Here's the part people don't talk about with this kind of thing. Even when you feel justified, it still messes with you. I slept like trash for a week. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach tightened. I'd be drafting something for a client and suddenly remember a folder that used to exist. A model I'd built from scratch. A detail library I'd refined over years. Gone. The data recovery lab called with an update. The text sounded careful. We got some of it. My chest tightened. How much is some? He said. We recovered fragments. Older versions. A lot of files are corrupted. Some are intact. Enough that you're not starting from zero, but it's not a full restore. I sat down in my car because my legs went weak. Not a full restore, but not zero. I drove home and opened the recovered drive they gave me. It was like sifting through a burned house and finding a few photo albums. Some client folders were there, missing pieces. Some models open with errors. Some drawings were intact, but out of date. I wanted to scream. Instead, I worked. I did what I always do when life punches me. I grind. I emailed clients with blunt honesty. An equipment failure caused data loss. We recovered partial files. I'm rebuilding deliverables. Here is the revised schedule. Some clients were sympathetic. Some were not. One developer sent back, "That's not my problem, Adam. I have investors." Another said, "If you miss this deadline, we'll have to replace you." I ate a penalty on one contract. Straight up, it hurt, but it was documented. And that documentation went straight into my case file. My lawyer was boring and relentless. He asked for numbers, not feelings. What work was lost? What income was delayed? What penalties were paid? What did recovery cost? What could I prove? And that's the key. Feelings don't win in court. Evidence does. Qley tried to play victim in mediation. She told her version like she was the main character. I didn't know it would delete anything. He never told me. He's always been controlling with his stuff. He cares more about money than people. Her lawyer nodded like that was a defense. Then my lawyer slid a printout across the table. A text from me, the day she borrowed it. Do not reset anything. Do not click any system wipe options. It's my work machine. Qley's face went blank. Mom jumped in, furious. This is insane. You're treating her like a criminal. My lawyer didn't react. He just said, the damages are documented. The demand is clear. We can settle today or proceed. That's when my dad finally looked scared. Because here's the thing. My parents weren't actually mad about family. They were mad about control. They were mad that my sister's oops was now a legal problem. They kept trying to guilt me into dropping it. Mom said, if you loved us, you'd stop. Dad said, you're making us look bad. Qley said, I'll never forgive you. And I kept saying the same thing. I'm not doing this to punish. I'm doing this because my work has value. Eventually, they offered a settlement. Not the full amount I'd lost. They couldn't. Qley didn't have it. But it covered the data recovery bill, the contract penalty I paid, and a chunk of lost revenue. It also included a repayment plan. Auto pay. On paper. Signed. Qley looked at me like I was a monster. Mom looked at me like I was dead to her. Dad looked tired. I signed. Not because I felt good. Because I was done letting this kind of damage vanish into family. After that, things got quieter. Qley stopped calling me unless it was to complain about money. Mom started doing cold, polite texts. Holiday stuff. We're having dinner at 6 if you want. No apology. No accountability. Just pretending the whole thing was an overreaction I'd eventually outgrow. I didn't go. I bought a new workstation. I set up real backups. Cloud plus external plus versioning. I learned my lesson the hard way. And I started treating my work like what it was. My livelihood. Not a toy my family could borrow and break. A few months later, I ran into my mom at a grocery store. Seattle has this way of making you see people when you least want to. She was in the produce aisle, holding avocados like she was deciding the fate of the world. She saw me first. Her face tightened. Then she did the thing she always does. Act like I'm the unreasonable one. So, she said, you still doing all that lawsuit stuff? I blinked. It's done. She sniffed. Qley's paying, you know. I said, that was the point. Mom frowned. You could have handled it privately. I looked at her for a second, then said, I tried. Mom opened her mouth, ready to argue, but I kept going. You taught her that sorry erases damage, I said. You taught her that if she cries, you'll protect her from consequences. And you taught me that I'm supposed to absorb it to keep the peace. Mom's eyes narrowed. We're family. I nodded. Exactly. And family shouldn't treat my work like it's disposable. She looked offended, like I'd insulted her religion. Then she said, cold and quiet, you've changed. I didn't deny it. I had to, I said. Then I grabbed my basket and walked away. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty. Here's the moral, plain and simple. If someone can destroy your livelihood and call it just a computer, they don't respect you. If someone tells you to relax when you're bleeding, they're not peace. They're pressure. And if your boundaries only exist when you're calm, you don't actually have boundaries. You have wishes. I loved my family for years in a way that looked like giving and forgiving and swallowing it. All that did was teach them I was safe to use. So yeah, I smiled. And I hired a data recovery specialist and a lawyer. Not because I wanted to win, because I wanted to stop losing. And I did. This story is about the moment you realize family has become code for someone who expects access to you. Adam isn't trying to win. He's worn down from being treated as the default fixer. The laptop wasn't the only issue. It was the moment his work, time, and stability were dismissed as not a big deal. The lesson is simple. Being related to someone doesn't give them permission to damage your livelihood. Minimizing harm doesn't keep peace. It just shifts the cost onto the person who's responsible. When people avoid consequences, the pattern usually continues. Adam didn't escalate with drama. He documented what happened, used proper channels, and set a boundary that couldn't be argued away.